You're listening to the PRO Media Network. The next level in entertainment.
Who that family? Check out the Pro Shop, the platform stores, where you can go and buy all the latest merch to support the platform. Available at the Pro Shops, we have dozens of hundreds of products available for you and your family. Unisex tees for men and women, hoodies and sweatshirts, tank tops, kids and baby items, long sleeve tees, mugs, pillows, wall art, bath bedding, face masks, phone cases, stickers, bags, fanny packs, socks, hats, and many other items. Please feel free to check out the Pro Shops. The link is in the description section below. And remember, it helps the platform continue to grow. So check out the Pro Shop and who that too.
And now, here's your host, Big Q and her guys.
Big ups, fam. What's going on? You're now rocking with the Sports Coma, man. We in the building. Much love to the fam. Pro Network Radio in full effect. TSC Radio, our Wednesday special. We in the building. Much love to the Great Saint Think Tank. And like I've been saying for some time now, welcome. You're now rocking with the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys. But we have intense, entertaining, educating, and enlightening sport talk from your favorite sports family. I'm in the building. Big ups to the fam. Appreciate y'all. Join us in this episode of TSC Pro Radio as we get going on our Wednesday radio special. Much love to the fam. I appreciate each and every last one of y'all being in the live stream. And fam, like I've been saying, man, for some time, man, it feels good to be talking to the family members in this one, man, as we're going to get going with this one, covering the latest news and notes today on the Black and Gold. We're going to go over quite a few shows, articles for the family members dealing with the Black and Gold. The injury report for this week is coming up here and for Wednesday. And, of course, we're going to talk about the Saints putting Mark Ingram on the C-19 list. It's already Wednesday. We're going to talk about that. We're going to cover the Jets and Saints injury report. We'll go over that as well. We'll also talk about Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, what he's looking like. We'll also talk about poor Glenn Foster and the latest news on him as well. So a lot going on in the nation. Please feel free to hit the like button, family. If you hadn't hit the like button, please feel free to hit upon the like button. Please feel free to subscribe to Pro Radio as we'll be doing these shows every Wednesday. We're going to be doing the Pro Network shows. You kind of build up our platform here that this is how we got started and just kind of going back to our roots on this thing. So big ups to the fam, man. You can feel free to hit the chat button. If you questions, concerns, or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat as well as we get going with this one. Now, what's interesting and intriguing about the whole dilemma dealing with the Black and Gold, of course, a lot of people in kind of put their chips in on the Saints and said, listen, Black and Gold's not going anywhere, man. They're 5-7 right now. They're dead last in the NFC South. We are headed toward the draft. A lot of frustrated family members they're saying the same thing to me during the live streams. And I'm like, man, listen, we still got games left to play, fam. Anything can happen in this crazy NFL landscape. And I keep saying that, man, because we've seen some stuff before. Now, whether that'll happen this year, it's up for debate, baby. It's still up for discussion. We don't know how this thing is going to end. All we can do at this point is just patiently go about our business and see what's going on. That's pretty much all we can do as far as that, to follow, see what the Black and Gold's going to do, man. I tell you, man, it's definitely a problematic season. I'm not going to tell you no different. But anyway, let's get into some of this news, man. We're coming straight from New Orleans Saints.com. that's covering the John DeSacier on the Saints running back Mark Ingram placed on reserve on the C-19 list, along with Cam Jordan. So Cam and now Mark Ingram are placed on that list. And safety Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is designated return from IR. So it's good and bad news there as Mark Ingram is placed on the C-19 list along with Cam. That's not really good news, but, good news. But the really good news is the fact that we get Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back at the cornerback, at the nickel position, which is, we've been missing him. Now, Saints running back Mark Ingram was placed on the reserve C-19 list Wednesday. Ingram's listed one of several posted on NFL Transaction Wire for Saints 5 and 7 who will play the Jets, who are 3 and 9 Sunday at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Also for New Orleans, defensive back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was designated to return from the injury reserve, and guard James Carpenter and tackle Gerald Hawkins were added to the practice squad. So Carpenter, a former offensive lineman that played with the Seattle Seahawks. Saints trying to add a few people here to kind of steady that line. Now, Ingram, the Saints' all-time leader in rushers and rushing touchdowns, played the team's most recent game in the 27-17 loss to Dallas back on December the 2nd. He becomes the second Saint to join the C-19 list this week. Cam Jordan was placed on it Monday. Now, Ingram, the Saints' second leading rusher, has 233 and a touchdown on 55 carries in 5 games with the Saints this season. And Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is poised to return to the field after missing the last 4 games. He last played November the 7th. Against the Atlanta Falcons. So what's positive, if there is any, to the whole dilemma is the fact that we lose Cam and Ingram. Cam was on it Monday. It's possibly can come back. So we'll see how it all rounds out in the end. But, that's how it goes. Let's move into our injury report dealing with here as we talk about the injury report news for Wednesday. Week 14, Saints and Jets, 7 Saints listed on Wednesday's injury report. All right, New Orleans Saints players were listed on the injury report for the team's Week 14 game against the Jets. Ramczyk was with his knee situation, was DNP'd again. Pete Werner had an elbow issue. He was DNP'd as well. Defensive end Marcus Davenport, shoulder issue, played. So that's a positive. Teron Armstead, knee also was limited. Both Davenport and Armstead limited in action. Caden Ellis from a hamstring was limited, and Alvin Kamara, good to say, he finally had a full practice, along with Mr. Taysom Hill fully practiced, but Taysom's dealing with that right finger situation as well. Now going over to the Jets got quite a few people on their list. Sheldon Rankins, the former Saint, has a knee issue. He was DNP'd. Michael Carter, the cornerback, DNP'd. Tevin Coleman, the former Atlanta running back, is DNP'd with concussion. And, of course, you had guard Darvin Tardif. He was DNP'd with ankle situation. Elijah Moore, the wide receiver from Ole Miss, was DNP'd. Ryan Griffin, the tight end, was DNP'd. C.J. Mosley, the linebacker, was DNP'd. Trayvon Westcoat was DNP'd as well, so a lot of injuries there. And limited was John Franklin Myers, the defensive linebacker. Hamza Nasiruddin, he was limited with a knee situation. And quarterback Zach Wilson had a knee issue. He fully practiced for the Jets. So we have a few guys down, but the positives is that you did see Davenport back at practice, Armstead back in practice in a limited capacity, Alvin Kamara fully practiced, Taysom Hill fully practiced. So that's 2 of the Saints' weapons that we seriously need to kind of move that thing along, man. We definitely need, to be honest with you, we really do need some of those guys, some of our most dangerous or most electric players to come to play for the black and gold, especially this week. Coming up against the Jets, 5 and 7. Now, listen, the Saints lose this matchup, okay? If the Saints lose this matchup against the New York Jets, and I'm not saying they do, I'm saying if they lose, you know what that means? That means the Saints are done, man. Stick a fork in their ass. I'm just going to lay it straight out. If you can't beat the 3-9 Jets, no disrespect to the Jets, but the Saints have more than enough weapons to be able to beat the Jets. Even odds makers have the Saints beating the Jets as a 5.5-point favorite. Now, of course, that's enough to piss off the Jets, who eventually are going to want to try to bring it in the matchup. But at the end of the day, the reality is it's just how it is in the NFL. The Saints will have to step up and play ball, the bottom line. We got to handle business. That's just how we got to go. We got to handle business against this club. Stick a fork in them if they can't beat the Jets, fam, for real. And I know we banged up, but you get Alvin Kamara back. You have Taysom Hill there, Trevor Siemian. We're hearing Coach Payton alluded in one of his press conferences, or actually a teleconference call, alluding to going back to Taysom perhaps. I don't think Coach Payton does that because, of course, we know based on the injury that Taysom has, he can't completely grip the ball. It's on his hand, his right hand, which is his throwing hand. So he can't grip the damn ball. So what purpose is it for him to be active as a quarterback? But I think this is just part of the spear of mind games that Coach Payton is kind of alluding to kind of throw the New York Jets staff off. Of course, any sound, reasonable person knows that Coach Payton can't possibly go to Taysom Hill. He can't grip the damn ball. But he can act as a weapon to run as a running back or perhaps a wide receiver to catch the ball and make plays to help move the offense. Getting Alvin Kamara back in space definitely helps. Losing Ingram hurts a bit, but we do have Tony Jones Jr. there. Remember how the Saints looked early with Tony Jones and Alvin Kamara together. So that was a pretty good look. Do the Saints then revisit that idea? Do they then go back to that idea? Do they go back to Alvin Kamara and Tony Jones Jr.? If Ingram can't play, obviously that might be the move. But Cam Jordan is another interesting person to this whole mixture as well. Being that Cam is out on the C-19 list, who's going to be the top Saints defender? Now, of course, Davenport practiced today in limited capacity. And then, of course, the other side of it is Carl Granderson. But Coach Payton alluded to it early in this week about them playing David Onyemata at the defensive end position. Saints are thin at the defensive line. A lot of the guys that are now there, the Shy Tuttles, and we know Malcolm Roach is on the IR. But then you look at guys like Shy Tuttle, you look at Joseph Bronson, you look at Elbert Huggins and guys like that, undrafted guys that have a high motor, but that are good in spurt action, not full-time action. So hopefully those guys can step up their roles or elevate their level of the play to help out the Saints line right now. And, of course, and like I've been alluding to this too for as many games, is that the Saints have to. I mean, they have to, really have to. They really have to start using some imagination in their defensive schemes. When you have the defensive line as banged up as they are, and even Passanio is now out on the IR, as banged up as they are, you're going to have to use guys like Zach Bowen in roles outside of just special teams or a linebacker role. Now, of course, Pete Werder is banged up as well. He didn't practice with an elbow situation, so perhaps when it gets close to game time, if he's not good to go, it probably would help elevate Zach Bowen to that position. But even with that being said, you still have to be able to use Zach Bowen in the pass rush role. I mean, after all, he had double-digit sacks when he was at Wisconsin playing out of that role, and the Saints ultimately said we won't see what he looks like as a stand-up linebacker, dropping back into coverage and stuff like that. We're going to turn him into that, which is fine. But you also have to realize to utilize the strengths of these players, and I think that Zach Bowen is good. He needs to be on the defensive line, not all the time, but perhaps in certain situations. He can be used as a situational pass rusher if Cam can't go and you got a banged up Davenport, Granderson. He needs to be in there. So I don't understand what Dennis Allen is doing with that. You need some pass rush ability, and Zach Bowen is a guy who can get to the pass rusher. So utilize him. He's 6'3", 245 pounds, something in that range. He had a pretty good preseason and training camp. He was training with the Watt boys, JJ and TJ. What needs to happen now is let's see what he can do in that role. And I think that's a portion of what we're not seeing from that defensive imagination from defensive coordinator Dennis Allen. So we have to be able to kind of get that thing moved in the right direction. But once again, the Saints injury report for Wednesday, the first of the week, I have Ryan Ramczyk is DNP, which is not good news with the knee. Pete Werner, who has outplayed Zach Bowen to earn that other linebacker spot, is DNP with an elbow. And this is early on now, but Davenport, good news is that Davenport and Armstead, both of which we need those guys to contribute, especially if Cam's not there. Davenport is going to have to step into a role if Cam can't get back in time off the C-19 list. And, of course, Teron Armstead, as poorly as he's been playing this year, Teron Armstead is definitely helps there if his mind is right. So the Saints, hopefully, are they feeling any sense of urgency? That's the thing that I really, want to know. Are they feeling a sense of urgency here? That's the big question. Is the Saints feeling a sense of urgency moving into the rest of the season? You got to, right? You got to be feeling some type of sense of urgency. You're sitting up here at 5-7. You're in the NFC South cellar underneath the Atlanta Falcons and the Carolina Panthers, who just fired their offensive coordinator. You know, you've lost 5 straight contests. You haven't won a football game in over a month. The last time you won a football game was against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You've since have fallen all the way to the 5-7, the 5-6 squads around those several teams, and it's a mishmash of talent there. So the Saints losing streak allowed them to fall all the way to sub 500, which now they have to fight back up to 500 to get to 7-7 and carry on. Only problem with that is the Saints have, I ain't going to say look past the Jets here, but the next 3 games, the Saints have some pretty interesting competition. Of course, they got to go to the Jets, and then, of course, the next matchup coming against Tampa Bay, and then you have a meeting with Miami. And then on the back end of the rest of the season, it's all part 2s to the NFC South squads when we play guys like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we got the Atlanta Falcons, and the Carolina Panthers. So the Saints have to be able to, all of which the Carolina Panthers, the only team, Carolina beat us early in the year, so did Atlanta. And, of course, we have to, if we want something, we're going to be kind of wrestling with the Carolinas and the Atlantas of the world to have an opportunity to go in as a wild card. So pretty much all of the flaws or all the errors the Saints had to give, they've given them over the last 5 weeks. There's no more room for error-free football. In my account, the Saints, to have a decent opportunity to be in the playoffs, the Saints going to have to go out of the 5 games. They're going to have to try to win all 5 or go 4-1. That's the best bet. And hope that other teams ahead of you, if they lose, may it be to one of these teams in the AFC. Whether it's we need to win against the Jets, but if it's a loss to the Dolphins, perhaps, and then you have to finish out against all of the other competition to have a shot. But really, ideally, which is kind of in the realm of fantasy, but anything could happen, so to speak. If you take a look at what the Saints have over, if they win out the next 5 games, that definitely wakes up things. The issue is that's a tall order to beat Tampa Bay, and I'm not saying they can't beat Atlanta and Carolina. These teams are struggling right now. Miami's playing really good ball as well, but the issue is Tampa Bay is the biggest of the block there. The Saints will have to sweep Tampa Bay in their current state. Can they do that? So, I mean, these are big questions in the Black Gold Nation. A lot of family members say, hell no, they can't do that, Q. They can't do that shit, man. They can't beat no Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I'm like, man, where's your faith, man? Where's your faith, Saints family members? And, well, I guess the Saints done lost it out of a lot of people. And a lot of people are kind of frustrated after watching the Saints bottom out like what they've been doing. So I can't really be too hard on the family members based on what we've been seeing of the last Saints football, man. 5 straight disgusting losses. I mean, real terrible back-ass losses. Really terrible garbage time, foolish, trash losses that we've seen happen. And it's a shame, man. So the Saints got to get up off their ass, and they got to put some better performances together, no doubt about it. Anyway, let's keep it moving, man, as we talked about the injury list as well. But also, good news is, like I said, Alvin Kamara need fully practice. Taysom Hill had a right finger situation, but I don't think he's going to be used as a quarterback. We mentioned that about Davenport and Armstead being in Lebanon. But in addition to that, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who had a foot issue, is set to return from the IR. He was spotted at Wednesday's practice, though it's unclear what his capacity is. His status won't be reflected on the injury report until he actually activated to the 53-man roster. So this is a positive to get Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back. So we kind of addition by subtraction. We lose Cam on Monday. Actually, you lose Deontay Harris to a 3-game suspension. You lose Cam and Ingram to the C-19 list, but you get Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back. You get Marcus Davenport back in a limited capacity. You get Teron Armstead back limited, perhaps tomorrow or later on in the week. We might get Ryan Ramczyk back, depending on how bad or how severe his knee issue is as well. So we'll see. And, of course, like I said, the Saints added guard James Carpenter and tackle Gerard Hawkins to the practice squad. So that's a bit of news right there for the Saints picking up those guys as well. So, let's go over that, man, because we knew eventually that the Saints would have to pick up some people there to kind of help them out in that situation. And this could be a problem, a decent move, because in reality, man, we really needed that, man. We really needed to get some we needed some help. We need some help. We need some depth at the offensive line. And it's good to see they were able to do that. So, The Saints signed 2 offensive linemen to the practice squad after the offensive line continues to battle the injury bug. This is coming from NOLA.com. And the health of New Orleans Saints offensive line at this point in the season has prompted the team to sign 2 more veteran offensive linemen to the practice squad, guard James Carpenter and tackle Gerard Hawkins. Both of them were present at practice Wednesday. Carpenter is an Alabama product, has played in 128 games with 121 starts, previously suiting up for the Seahawks, Jets, Atlanta, and Baltimore. He was most recently with the Ravens on their practice squad before they waived him in October. Now, Hawkins is an LSU product that was drafted by Pittsburgh back in 2016 and has since played 19 games with 1 start. Right tackle Ryan Ramczyk participated in Wednesday's practice, signaling that he could be out for he didn't participate, signaling he might be out for another week, while left tackle Armstead was limited. Both dealing with knee injuries. Armstead missed 3 of the last 4 with injuries, and Ramczyk has been out for at least 3 weeks. On top of those injuries, 2 are of the injury reserve. Guard Andrews P. sustaining a pectoral tear. They put him out for the season. Rookie offensive tackle Landon Young sustained a foot injury that ended his season against the Philadelphia Eagles. So the Saints continue to try to fill in the gap, and they get 2 veteran offensive linemen to come in to kind of help them out with this whole situation. So Saints keep it moving, man. If they can get these guys on the right page, I guess maybe this could have been done a little earlier. We had kind of that Thursday day, but I guess we're doing the best we can do at this point, to be honest with you, fam, with these injuries, man, to the offensive line. So you move in veteran offensive linemen and hope that you can kind of dumb down the game plan to make it a little bit better for those guys. So when they get an opportunity to get in there to play, they'll have some type of success. So hopefully we won't have to get to that point where we will have to use those guys. So we'll see how it all looks, man, moving ahead. But my goodness, man, the injuries that keep happening to the New Orleans Saints, man, my goodness, man, it just stinks. I'm telling you, man, it really stinks. And it is what it is. But injuries happen to us all, man. It's just how you deal with them will tell you about your level of success and what kind of level of success you will have, because most teams don't deal with it too well. The ones that do will have success and move and have deep playoff runs. So can we be that team? Over the last several seasons, we dealt with injuries pretty well, but this is something else. Saints $61 million over projected 2022 NFL salary cap. Let's get into it. This one's from the Saints Wire with John Sigler. Good news, everyone. Multiple reports came out in recent days confirming that the 2022 NFL salary cap is expected to hit $208.2 million, spending ceiling previously agreed in light of fluctuating profits due to the C-19 pandemic. The league and the players union agreed on a salary cap floor for 2020 and 2021, as well as a ceiling for 2022, and things are on track to meet it before a series of new media report contracts come in effect in 2023, prompting a real jump in the cap more in line than what we're used to. Now, that's going to carry some serious implications for the upcoming offseason, particularly teams like the Saints. New Orleans is currently projected to start the spring over the cap by over $60 million. That's right, more than any other team, but light work compared to the $101 million maintained the mountain the team had the following this year. Still, some tough decisions are in store for navigating. Here's your roadmap for how the Saints can reach cap compliance. So once again, $100 million last year, and then $60 million, 61 to be precise this year, with the Saints dealing with monetarily speaking. So when people ask the question, yo, Q, why are we not doing this? Why are we not doing that? Why are we not doing this and why are we not doing that? It's simple. You don't have no damn money. That's the bottom line. You don't have enough money to operate and do what you really want to do. So, I mean, this explains it all. But let's talk about it. A number of high-profile injuries and off-season departures have racked up dead money and reserve totals for the Saints this year. A lump in the excess of $45 million in money tied up with players that's no longer on the team. Who, pray tell? $11.15 million of dead money for Drew Brees. Jack Rabbit, $7.2 million. Emmanuel Sanders, $4.1 million, all of which we can use all those guys about right now with me. Sheldon Rankins, $4 million, is already on there. But another $29 million is sidelined by injuries to big names such as Mike Thomas, $10 million. Andrews Pete, $5.6 million. Will Lutz, almost $3 million. Jameis, $2.5 million. And Peyton Turner at $227 million. In other words, $74 million of the $184 million the Saints were allowed to spend this year, which is just north of 40%, have been unavailable. So it's no surprise that New Orleans is under the cap by just $100,000, about 800 G's. So they have to pinch their pennies tight and work around the clock to find more resources. The fact that they were competitive at all this year is remarkable. A new downside, though, it is the Saints will have little to no used cap space to roll over into the new fiscal year. As far as the dead money situation looks like in 2022 right now, the Saints are on the hook for over $12.4 million in accounting for former players. Almost all of that is the final hurdle left for Breeze's retirement, which is the $11.5 million, which he's owed, and another $850,000 left over from Latavius Murray's release. Going from 24.4% to 6% over your cap commitments being tied to players no longer on the team is a game changer, though that number will inevitably go back up once various roster moves and free agency decisions are completed. So who could be guys who are eligible for restructurings? Well, we know about Laddie Daddy signed his contract, but that won't stop the Saints from looking at him as a possible restructure. We'll start with the biggest cap hit on the books for next season. Lattimore's September contract extension was earmarked for a restructure in 2022, converting his $15 million roster bonus and most of his $9.1 million base salary into a new signing bonus to yield over $18.4 million in cap savings. So he goes from a team-leading $27.4 million cap hit to which is 13.19% of his established salary cap ceiling, to a relatively modest $9 million, just 4.32% of the cap ceiling. So that's a savings up to about $18.4 million if they restructure it in that way. Who's the next guy? Of course, Ryan Ramczyk, who also just signed an extension. Like Lattimore, the deal Ramczyk signed late in the summer included a sizable roster bonus of $8.5 million and a very high base salary of $10.5 million for 2022, both of which will likely be folded up and spread out through a restructure. That will lower his cap hit from $22.8 million, third highest on the team, all the way down to $8.4 million, and cut the percent of cap commitments tied to him from 10.95% to about 4%. These two restructures with Lattimore and Ramczyk are enough to get the Saints from $61 million in the hole to just $28.3 million in the red. So the Ramczyk restructures savings up to $14.3 million. Who's next? Of course, Taysom Hill. Notice a trend. Like other recent contract extensions the Saints have given out, Hill's deal included a roster bonus in 2022 that will probably be converted into a signing bonus, cutting his cap by $7.2 million. Now, the Saints are still on the hook for $5.1 million, but that's far more manageable and leaves them over the cap ceiling by $21.1 million. So it's a savings of $7.2 on Taysom's restructured deal. Of course, Alvin Kamara got to be there some way. The Saints have touched Kamara's contract in 22, haven't touched it in 2021, but that should change in 2022. The percentage of the cap committed to him nearly triples in the space of a year. A maximum restructure could lower his 2022 cap hit from $14.5 million to $6.6 million, create enough savings to get New Orleans down to about $13.2 million over the cap, which is just under $8 million in cap savings for Kamara's restructuring for the upcoming year. Who's left? How about Andrews Pete? It's possible the Saints could instead look to trade Pete after June 1st of next year. Doing so saves about $11 million, but another restructure feels more likely. That's been a strategy with him so far. It would yield about $6.5 million in savings, while Pete has underperformed and missed time with injuries. Cutting him isn't an option. It would cost New Orleans an additional $9.2 million if done before June 1st, and only help them break even if done afterwards. A pre-June 1st trade would create a $1.65 million in savings while leaving about almost $14 million on the books, which is unacceptable. So another restructure is the move here, and they could get the Saints down to just under $7 million over the cap without losing any players. David Onyemata's extension. Onyemata hasn't been as effective in the past since returning from a 6-game PED suspension, but he's still the best defensive tackle the Saints have, and extending his contract is no-brainer. It gives him an opportunity to shave his cap hit from $13.1 million down to about $6 million, putting them over the cap by a little more than 800 G's, and they still haven't cut anyone. So these are just restructurings of some of the highest contracts on the team of some of their most young and productive players. And, of course, Marcus Davenport is a candidate for a potential extension. People are like, nah, we don't want to do that. But, let's see what Coach Payton do. Two highly paid Saints players we haven't discussed a Cam Jordan $22.6 million cap hit in 2022 and Mike Thomas's $24.7 million, and it's almost time to get to that. I just wanted to take the opportunity to first show how the Saints can get under the cap without losing either player, and Davenport has been the best defensive lineman on the team when he's been healthy this year, and the Saints would be smart to sign him to an extension before he plays a full season in 2022, and he sees his value skyrocket much like Trey Hendrickson did. A good model would be Josh Sweat. He had the 3-year deal worth $40 million with almost $27 million guaranteed. If Davenport is up for signing a similar deal, the Saints keep him in the fold at what may be proved to be a below value market in a year or two, and his restructure his 5th-year option payout to create about $7 million in cap savings for the 2022 season. That gets the team under the cap, expresses confidence in the players who fought through a lot of adversity, and might also put the finishing touch on the Jordan replacement plan. A restructure can also possible, but it saves a similar amount of about $6.4 million and still leaves Davenport as a free agent in 2023. It saves up to almost $7 million. Bradley Roby, who we picked up. I'll start off the bat by saying it's more likely Roby is released and maybe later re-signed, just like Quan Alexander was, but let's look at the numbers. Cutting or trading Roby before June 1st of next year saves about $9.4 million and $10 million flat after that day. A restructuring with a maximum number of ghost years saves $7 million, but a real extension could yield as much as $7.1 in savings. He's worth keeping around if the difference in savings comes down to a $2.3 million between cutting or extending him, and he's played well enough to hang on at the right price. He's a better dime than P.J. Williams. He could continue to push Paulson the depot for a starting job. If his legs don't slow down, he turns 30 next year. In this scenario, we extend his contract and keep the secondary a strength of the team. After all these moves and no cuts, we're down to $195.1 million in cap commitments with more salary cap maneuvers available. Let's keep going, baby, because now we get to the big fish in the pond. We get to the big fish in the pond, baby. We get to the big ones. All right, so the next one to talk about, Mike Thomas is the next dude to talk about for the restructure plan. Straight up cutting Thomas is out of the question. So before the June 1st, 2022 cut would save about $2 million, while waiting until after that date would yield about $16 million. That comes after free agency and after the draft. At that point, with Thomas would be a real factor in team construction, even if he's been a frustrating talent to manage. Even if the decision is put the surgery backfired, all involved behind him, the Saints are better off together with Mike Thomas. They both know that. So still, if the team could trade him after June 1st deadline and save the $16 million against the cap while getting something back for him, but that doesn't feel likely given how critical the absence proved to be to the receiving corps this year. Look for Thomas and the Saints to huddle up, settle their difference, and attack in 2022. And a restructure would do a lot to help lower his $24.7 million cap hit, which ranks second highest on the team. Restructuring a big chunk of that base salary into a new signing bonus would create almost $10 million in savings and free up resources to spend elsewhere, like finding him a quality number 2 receiver to work alongside of him. And in this scenario, the Saints get down to about $85 million in cap commitments and about almost $23 million under the cap. So, that's what they're looking at with all of these various restructuring. And finally, Cam Jordan, restructure or trade. What do you do with Cam? This might be the toughest decision the Saints make in the offseason. Jordan is the longest tenured player on the team with the second most sacks in franchise history. He's been voted a defensive captain as a fixture in the locker room, but his play has continued to regress in recent years. And his current value, it's time to consider moving on. I don't agree with the writer on this, but don't expect anything to happen prior to June 1st. Releasing or trading Jordan before that date yields only minuscule savings, $1.2 million in savings, while waiting frees up to $14.5 million. That could be put towards extensions with younger players, and the trade makes more sense because Jordan will be welcome knowing nearly every defensive line around the league. But if the Saints can't afford a good trade offer in return, they could cut him and let him choose his own landing spot. With a departure feels likely in spring, we wouldn't rule out a reworked contract. A restructure saves about $8.5 million and keeps Jordan on the team for another year or two. He's a consistent producer, and by restructuring, which is not a trade, it's not a release, not trading, but a restructuring of Cam's money will help the team. I think Cam finished his entire career as a New Orleans Saints player. That's what I think will happen with Cam Jordan. He's been here. He's been a stable quarterback fixture here. I don't see Cam Jordan going a goddamn place. You know, people always throwing that crap about Cam and we need to get rid of Cam and all this. Cam's double team a lot. Yeah, he hasn't been as productive as we would like to see over the last several years. But still in all, Cam is still the best defensive lineman you have. And if you get rid of Cam Jordan, who you replace him with? Davenport, who can't play a full season? Peyton Turner, who's similar traits to Davenport in his first year. Who do you replace him with? You go out and try to find somebody else? No. You don't have any viable replacements right now because none of the guys that you have that were drafted to replace Cam Jordan can actually replace him. What is that thing about your best ability? Remember that? Your best ability is what? Availability? Well, Cam's been every bit of that. That's why Cam gets paid the money. He's there. And and it's not like Cam's wasting his time. You know, Cam Jordan has doubled every damn play, right? And that's not an excuse, but still in all, the Saints have to use their imagination defensively to give Jordan an opportunity to have easier matchups. We've talked about stunting him, moving him around. Like, remember how the Texans used to do with J.J. Watt when he was there, how they would move him from side, had they just be an amoeba of a defensive line, moving guys all around, creating confusion for the offensive line pre-snaps. Remember that? The Saints have to get more imaginative on how they use some of these players. We talked about Zach Bourne. Cam Jordan is the same way. Use Cam Jordan, move him around on the defensive line, why don't you? Create some confusion. You know, he could play inside and out, move him around. You know, move him on top of the weak offensive tackle out there. You know, that's the thing. We need some more imagination defensively speaking, man. That's what it takes here. That's what it really takes. Not all this other stuff about consistently just leaving them lined up there. No, we need to use some brains here, man, and create better opportunities for guys like that to do what they got to do. But I'm against releasing Cam Jordan. I mean, you don't have a viable replacement for him, and that's a good enough reason right there. How are you going to release your longest tenured player for guys that can't even prove they can play full season? This don't make any sense. Of course, the potential restructuring of Malcolm Jenkins, who's getting up in age. There have been some snaps where he's shown his age, but Jenkins has played significantly better in 2021 than he did in 2022. In 2020, return to the Saints unless he really falls off the cliff in the final weeks of the season. He should be back in 2022 and restructured. Makes sense, the most sense. That will create a little more, over $3 million in cap space, which is comparable to the savings, cutting him outright, which would be like $4 million. $800,000 isn't worth losing a team captain and an important defender. If you keep Jenkins at the correct rate, I don't have a problem with keeping Malcolm Jenkins because you're going to have to draft a safety to kind of learn the job underneath him. Wouldn't have a better guy to learn as opposed to special team safeties like J.T. Gray or Jeff Heath. The Saints really need to bring in a potential safety there to come and learn the position underneath Malcolm Jenkins, and eventually Jenkins moves out of the way and he inherits the job. So right now the Saints safety situation seems like it's feasible right now, but the reality is that it is not. Demario Davis, he's a potential restructure too. Davis is a similar spot to Jenkins as an aging defender on the defense with a cap hit around $11 million. And the considerations are the same. Releasing Davis isn't an option. So, I mean, that's ridiculous. A restructure makes the most sense in both parties. That frees up about $4 million. And Davis gets some job security. Pete Werner has played well enough next to him and might make Quine expendable, but you like to have another young linebacker ready to step up once Davis calls it a career. That hasn't happened yet. So a $4 million in restructuring with him. And I'm for bringing Quine Alexander back on a similar deal as what he had this past season. I think we can afford to do it, bring him back as well. Will Lutz is eligible for a restructuring as well. Any speculation that the Saints could move on for Lutz and his big contract died when four of the 5 different kickers failed to fill in for him. I'm telling you. Brett Meyer missed and twice. Eldrick Rojas, Cody Parker, Brian Johnson have all struggled to bring any consistency to the kicking game. Assuming Lutz makes a full recovery from core muscle surgery, the Pro Bowler should step in the lineup in 2022. A restructure would save just over $1 million against the cap, which isn't much, but as the Saints have shown, every dollar counts. So, and that is true. And of course, the 2022 free agents that the Saints have to think about coming into upcoming season. Marcus Williams still on the franchise tag of 2021. Do you tag him again and bring him back? Or do the Saints extend Marcus Williams? What do you think? A lot of people like Marcus Williams. They think he's eligible. He should get the money. Some people feel, no, we can do better. It's strange how that is. It's like almost, I'm going to say it's a 50-50 proposition between the people that are for Marcus Williams versus the ones that are not. It's kind of strange how that all plays, to be honest with you. So, I mean, we'll see how it all moves going in Shaken family, but man, it's certainly strange. Let's finish up on this one, and then we'll move on to the next topic. All right, so with that being said, the other guys that's still free agents that's coming up, Teron Armstead, we know that the Saints are not going to bring him back unless he comes cheap. Jameis Winston, being that he's hurt, he can come back on a cheaper, more affordable deal that the Saints could use if they really believe in Jameis the way they say. Same with Quan Alexander. I think Quan Alexander would definitely be a guy that you want to bring back as well on a cheaper deal. P.J. Williams, I think P.J. probably played his way into another contract with the black and gold. Traquan Smith, who knows with Traquan Smith? I would have to say no to that. There's still 5 games left, but Traquan Smith has been a disappointment in the black and gold uniform with few plays here or there. He has not been the guy that we anticipated he was supposed to be, and we've had 4 years of Traquan Smith. This is his final year in his contract, and I would have to say no to him. Dwayne Washington probably comes back for a cheap contract. Ty Montgomery possibly could. Heat the same way. All these guys are special team players that'll work for cheap. Trevor Siemian the same way. Jalen Holmes, all these guys are the same way. And, of course, you have some restricted free agents, exclusive rights, restricted free agents like Juwan Johnson, who the Saints should bring back, Jalen Dalton, Deontay Harris, Carl Granderson, Shai Tuttle, Gary Griffin, and Nathan Greenwich, guys like that. Well, the exclusive rights free agents are Juwan Johnson, Jalen Dalton, and the restricted free agents are Deontay Harris, Granderson, Tuttle, Griffin, and Ethan Greenwich are the only guys. So, like I said, the Saints are $60+ million over the cap starting next year, according to various numbers, and they have questions at the quarterback position. They do have a lot of draft capital, so the black and gold dealing with the restructurings galore will have to take place for the squad to be competitive enough moving forward to be able to take care and do what they need to do. All right, let's move into our final topic, man. This one is not a very sad, sobering topic. It's about former Saints player attacked inmate over socks before in custody death record show. So let's get into it. New Orleans, covered by WVU, is reporting that new documents obtained by Fox 8 said that former New Orleans Saints player Glenn Foster attacked another inmate before dying in police custody. Foster was arrested on December the 5th in Pickens County, Alabama, on suspicion of simple assault and third-degree robbery. The same day, court documents allege that Foster attacked another inmate in his sleep. The victim was asleep, and Foster stood over him, attempting to steal his socks before repeatedly striking the victim to the chest, ribcage, and abdomen area, the records say. The man suffered multiple bone bruises and swelling in his chest as a result of Foster's attack, officials say. He was transported to a hospital for treatment. It remains unclear what happened to the former Saints player between the time of the alleged attack and the time of death the next day at the medical facility in Northport, Alabama. So he attacks the inmate. So previous reports were kind of were trying to lead us in a direction that he got into a scrum or a fight with an inmate he could have sustained injuries. They didn't say that now. But they just allowed you to think that he could injuries sustained in a fight with an inmate could have ultimately led to his death. Now, of course, this is speculation by my part. Well, the inmate that he was fighting from, he was getting the best of him. Somebody had to come up in there and stop him from beating that inmate's ass, right? Well, who was that? Had to be the jail people, the jail guards, the correctional officers. And this is pure speculation, and I'm filling in, and we'll see over time what exactly happened. But in my vantage view, this is what I believe happened. Like I said, this is just my point, my opinion. You guys tell me what you think. Is that when Foster, whatever happened between them, he was trying to take his socks. If that portion of the story is true, that he was beating that inmate's ass, somebody had to come in and stop him from beating on that inmate, which probably were the COs, the correctional officers. And let's say that, this is pure speculation now, that he gets in with the COs. Well, between that, that time frame of with him and whoever stopping him from whooping that inmate's ass, between that time with him getting in a fight and him dying, what happened there for him to sustain injuries bad enough for him to die from? And remember, the previous reports, which is not a jump out of reality, really said that, to be honest with you, that Foster had got into it with people at the jail. We talking about the correctional officers. So that was indicated on the previous report as well. So it's not a jump in speculation to say that he got into a fight with the correctional officers and that was a result of him being killed. Let's just say that's allegation. That's just me, not allegation, but that's just speculation on my part. Is that if it wasn't the inmate, how did he die? Well, somebody had to stop him from fighting the inmate, which was the correctional officers. Glenn Foster could have got into it with them, and they took it too far to subdue him and probably could end up killing him in there. Because usually when that happens and they start holding all this stuff back like this and all this kind of stuff, that's usually the case when inmates die in prison. If it's not from another inmate and they had some type of altercation with the correctional officers, they usually slow with releasing that information, because it has to be that point. Because if it was another inmate, to a degree, they're not as liable. You get what I'm saying here? It's a fight between him and another guy, and then we were there, and then whatever injuries he had with the other inmate, he died from. But I'm telling you, watch how it all turns out in the end. Is that's probably exactly, that'll be the exact case of why Glenn Foster, he got into it with the correctional officers and it went too far and ended up killing him. So, I mean, this is speculation on my part, man, but I've heard a lot of shit over the years from stories like this before, which is a shame. That Glenn Foster, who's doing a lot of positive things in the community, and then he ends up dead, man. When his family was coming to bail him out, and then things changed where they couldn't bail him out, then next thing you know, they took him. It's weird because I've been reading this story, and I've been up on this story. They end up taking him to a facility that was way out of the way than where the facility that they wanted to go. They had a closer medical facility that they could have took him to. Now, this was coming from the family members that they took him to this other institution, this medical facility where he was pronounced dead, where they could have took him to a closer one to do it. Could it have been done so they could say that we tried to rush him there to give him the best care and he died on our way there? Well, the truth is they have their coroner, and I will say to the family of Glenn Foster to have an independent coroner to come in and do your independent person to come in and do an investigation to find out what really happened. Because like I've said, I've heard stories similar to this before where you had guys that got into it with the inmates and with the COs, and they end up going too far and end up killing the inmate in there. So we'll all find out, this family, eventually. You know, it'll all be revealed in time, because this story is picking up steam. It really is. And it's so sad, man. So sad. Glenn Foster, man. It was so sad. All right. So with that being said, fam, we're going to get ready to buck on that one. But just to doing a brief recap, the New Orleans Saints put Mark Ingram on the C-19 list with Cam Jordan. And, of course, Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara fully practiced today. And, of course, we talked about Teron Armstead was limited. Davenport was limited today as well. They reactivated, or they designated for return, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson off the IR, which is good news for the Saints defense. Although Ryan Ramczyk, knee, and linebacker Pete Werner, elbow, did not practice. Ryan Ramczyk is the guy that I'm looking at because I would love to have him for the game. But at least one of the tackles coming back against the Jets would be idyllic. So, and of course, Coach Payton talked about in a teleconference about possibly going with Taysom Hill, throwing a little stuff out there. And I wouldn't go for that. I wouldn't go for that at all. This is an attempt to kind of throw the Jets off of who they got a plan for, either Taysom Hill or Trevor Siemian. I think at some point, Coach Payton goes back to Trevor Siemian and use Taysom Hill in the utility role that he's comfortable with. And, of course, having Alvin Kamara there helps the Saints offense out in so many ways. And, of course, Ingram out, which is bad, but it's not as bad because Tony Jones Jr. is healthy. And remember early on in the year what Tony Jones Jr. and Alvin Kamara looked like together. They looked like a very good tandem. After the Saints got rid of Latavius Murray, they had Tony Jones, and he was doing really well in preseason and in training camp, running really hard behind that offensive line. And they looked really good together. So hopefully the Saints go back to Tony Jones Jr. if Mark Ingram can't play in this game because of the C-19 stuff. So the Saints, they give and get, man. It's give and get with the Saints right now. So, like I said, I'm anticipating when the game starts, you'll see Trevor Siemian out there operating, and he should have a little bit more success with guys like Alvin Kamara out there. And, of course, the Saints got rid of Kenny Stills, which I was anticipating. Kenny Stills wasn't doing a goddamn thing. Over the last 5 games, he basically became Kevin White, who the Saints ultimately said we can't have two sucky wide receivers on the team. We got Kevin White. He's sucky enough. And the Saints just keep bringing this guy back. So I anticipate the Saints activating this guy when the Jets come around. I don't understand why we keep messing around with this trash when we should have a guy like, see what Quan Baker or Easop Winston or any one of these guys can do. Even the guy we picked up from the Patriots, Perry, let him see what he can do. Why are we messing around with this bum-ass Kevin White character? I mean, this guy's a bust. He can't catch. You know, he's dropped all kind of passes. Had one catch the entire year, man. Whoop-de-doo. So, I mean, we talked about that. We also talked about and went over a few things pertaining to the Saints, the injury report. We also talked about the two offensive linemen the Saints added as well to kind of add depth to the offensive line. James Carpenter, the former Falcon and Seahawk, Alabama Crimson Tide player added to the team, as well as Gerald Hawkins, a former offensive lineman, played with the Steelers. He was drafted by the Steelers back in 2016. And they add these two veteran offensive linemen because the Saints are beat down with injuries in the offensive line. They need some help. And, of course, we talked about the money side of things with the black and gold and how the Saints are projected to be over the cap by $61 million for the 2022 season, and even gave some options of what the team could do to kind of get up from over, get under that cap situation again, kind of get down up under that thing. So, I mean, we talked about that as well. So, and then, of course, we talked about the very sad story of Glenn Foster, and what he represented. So this is very sad with him and the whole situation with Glenn Foster. And I'm telling you, family, that Glenn Foster situation, we're going to know the truth sooner or later, more sooner than later. But you won't be as quiet on an inmate hurting another inmate to death. That kind of is a little bit embarrassing, but it's not as bad, especially in today's climate when you have a CO that beats an inmate to death. Is that the case here? And of course, the smoke screen could be that they took him, they tried to save him or whatever from an altercation that occurred by taking him to the hospital, but he didn't make it to the hospital. And the family members is questioning, why did you take him to that facility when there was one closer? Why would you do that? And he died on the way there. He was pronounced dead once they got him there. So, I mean, it's all very relative and really strange. It kind of in parts of it reminds me, for whatever reason, of Sandra Bland. And remember, they had the footage of her and how some people actually believed, and we don't know if this is true or not, that they was propping her up, for pictures, and she was actually dead. So, I mean, it's just one of those things that happen, man. In the world, and in this world, we just got to be very mindful because stuff like that happens, man. But we don't have to speculate. Sooner or later, we're going to get the truth. We just have to be patient and wait for it. Well, family, that's going to do it for today's show on Pro Radio. TSC, man, we in the building. Recapping Saints news, man. And listen, you could do me a big favor and the platform a big favor by joining Pro Radio, man. That's right, going to Pro Radio. The link is in the description section below. Go on there and subscribe, man, and help us build a platform, man. We've been doing this stuff for well over 5 years, man, and more like 7 years, almost 8 years. Yeah, we started off here, man, in this realm. We're trying to bring it back, man. We have fun doing it. But anyway, I'd like to thank y'all for joining me for this episode of TSC Pro Radio. I'm going to holler at y'all later. Go Saints.
Big ups to the family members for supporting the live stream. First and foremost, thank you for all that you've done. I'd like to give a special shout out to all the family members out there that have been responsible for the growth of helping the platform by sharing of the links, as well as many other positive things, shopping at the merch shops. But if you really want to take it to the next level, consider joining our Patreon. Patreon.com/the PRO Media Network. Patreon.com/the PRO Media Network, where you can join up and become a monthly contributor. We have several different options to become a Patreon member, from $1 going up. So it depends on your level of commitment, and we really appreciate what you guys are doing as you continue to see growth and success at the PRO Media Network. If you want to ratchet up your support, please feel free to become a member at the patreon.com/the PRO Media Network, where you will have access to live content, the TSC Q&A live every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Over 20 shows are available right now, and also On Cue with Big Q, where we talk about those real topics and subjects Locked are also over 10 shows of those are available. You can get access to Locked content and plus visual respect on our scrolling banners from YouTube members to our Patreon champion. So please feel free to join now at patreon.com/the Pro Media Network. Thank you very much. TheWhoThatDaily.com. That's right, TheWhoThatDaily.com. Your one-stop shop for everything New Orleans Saints, New Orleans Pelicans, LSU Tigers, and even the top flight boxing news. So if you're a Who That and you're looking for a place to stay up on your team, TheWhoThatDaily.com is your site. TheWhoThatDaily.com for the sport Who That in all of us.
Saints and Pelicans fan, so the only podcast I can get my fix is The Sports Coma with Big Q. The guy's intense, funny, and they always keep it real.
Check out The Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys.
Are you a boxing fan? Check out Ring Kings Boxing only on the PRO Media Network.